Hey, good morning and welcome again, folks. Prescott E-News, Prescott Talks. I am your host, Glenn Martin. And second show in a row today, so we have a double header. And I'm so glad to have my next guest, Anne-Marie Ward. And Anne-Marie is running for the U.S. Congress.
Yes.
And we're going to find out who she is, what she stands for, and get to know Anne-Marie a little bit better. So who the heck are you?
Well, thank you for having me
Sure.
to begin with. So I am a Arizona native, but more importantly, I'm a Prescott Valley native. Born and raised in Prescott Valley. I live right here in Prescott, graduated Bradshaw High School, so proud bear. Went on, got my bachelor's in political science. I thought I wanted to be an attorney. Got to the very end of that degree, interned for an attorney, and with all due respect to all the attorneys out there, that wasn't for me. And so I came back home and I got my master's in education and started teaching. I taught at Glassford Hill and Coyote Springs. I was a math teacher. Loved that until they brought Common Core aboard. And I said, this is not going to work, which we saw it didn't. And then went on and I said, at that point, what do I do? And the thing I learned, and I've been working since I was 15, the thing I learned in all the different jobs that I tried, the different career fields, people don't quit the job, they quit the people. If we have unbelievably great leadership, we can see human capacity go beyond what we can imagine. From going to the moon, unmanned cars and vehicles, it's just unreal. But it's incredible leadership that gets us there.
Gotcha.
And so I went back one last time, got my doctorate in leadership, and opened up my own consulting firm, small business owner, and helped companies figure out what their plan was. Business planning, strategic planning, leadership development, recruitment and retention. I wrote curriculum and still lecture on public speaking, teaching teachers how to teach, different components. And so that really gives me a basis of looking at government and saying, what are your priorities? How are you getting them done? What are your metrics? And that's something completely lacking in our government.
So you went to school here in Arizona, ASU, or?
Actually, no, I got my bachelor's in Tennessee at Lambuth University, my master's at Prescott College. I think I was the only Republican they ever allowed in. Just kidding. I'm sure.
How did you survive all that? That's a great question.
Actually,
all that indoctrination, you had to have been going, holy moly.
Oh, man. I will tell you that their graduate programs, there's a very balanced representation in politics at the graduate level. Not so much at the bachelor's level, but they were great. It's a good education there at that master's of education level. But I joke with them. In fact, I saw the president this week and I said, I think I was your only Republican. But it was one of the schools you could go to and teach at the same time. There's a list of schools. And it was local here, so it was easy for me. And then I did my doctorate at Piedmont International in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Gotcha.
So
Cool.
here, there, and everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere in between.
Yes.
So it was interesting, and as we go on, I was looking at the Daily Courier, and it was a Sunday morning, I believe, and I went and I heard this thung or boom, and I thought, the weatherman's got it wrong again. We're getting a storm. And I looked outside and it was blue and the sky. Anyway, long story short, it was a meteor. So I'm looking at the newspaper article and somebody said, isn't that Anne-Marie standing there next to the meteor guy? So you guys have a little bit of history as far as space rocks go too.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So
we are heavily involved in the sciences. My husband has spent over 20 years in meteoritics, traveling the world, recovering meteorites. We work with institutions like NASA, U of A, ASU, Chicago Field Museum, and really the science that advances from meteorites is unheard of. So the OSIRIS-REx asteroid return sample mission was, the whole premise to that was they used a meteorite he had found to calibrate that to be able to go and do.
wow.
So it's hard sometimes to look at these little rocks and how they translate to us really knowing so much more about the world around us.
It's amazing your scope of learning and intelligence. It really is, because not only are you running for the Congress, but you've got all these master's degrees, and you also understand the planetary lineup of what's going out beyond the Earth, right?
Beyond the Earth, yes, yes.
But I had to throw that out.
No,
I know that.
I think that's great.
But to me, I've always loved space stuff and travel,
Yes.
and there's so much more to learn. learn, and it's really kind of cool. And someday when we don't have cameras, we'll talk a little
Yeah.
bit more about it. But what a neat thing. And I read the article, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Just to see you involved in that.
Thank you.
So why are you running for Congress?
Why am I running for Congress? Well, I'll tell you that science background actually really translates into it. So I've been to a lot of countries with my husband on a lot of these expeditions, and many of them are socialist, formerly communist countries, and what you see there is total devastation. You know, I've been in Cuba. These people are living with trash in the streets. The only money that is spent there is for the new palace. They are terrified of their government. There's not enough food. The water doesn't turn on. And so when I looked at the national dialogue and the conversation where we're seeing this massive influx of socialist tendencies and the championing of socialist rhetoric from AOC, Omar, Tlaib, that's terrifying because they're not only using their platform as elected officials, but they're using social media, artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, and so they are reaching and resonating with the millennials and the next generations coming up in a way that's terrifying, where we're not looking at these principles and policies in the way that we should be, that they don't make sense. It's never been successful, but they're winning them because they're trending. And the Republican Party, conservatives, we haven't done a good job of translating why conservative principles, why the Constitution deeply resonates and should with every generation. And so looking at that, I also feel this family obligation. My family fought in the Revolutionary War and almost every armed conflict since then. My dad is 76, a proud paratrooper of the United States Army, and seeing that legacy of this is our great American legacy. It's now my turn. It's not an armed conflict. I guess it's conflict of words. But it's time to step up. And it's time for our next generations to step up to the plate, get involved, get engaged, and say, this is why we believe this. This is why we need to work on this. We need productivity, not arguments and bickering. We need to engage the next generations. And so at every level, from ideological to productivity, we need new and better representation moving forward. And so after looking around at the world, I said, we need better, and I'm going to do this.
I'm going to do that.
Yes.
So a lot of the questions I get, and I've been to several of your venues where you spoke,
Yes.
and you know what? One thing, and I'm not trying to convince everybody out there, but you are a very good conservative. I mean,
Yes.
I can tell you that a lot of your values are my values. And before I get going, before my producer yells at me,
Okay.
if you have any questions for Anne Marie, please write them down in the comment section so we can ask her, because we're a two-way operator here, and
Excellent.
you know what? She's not afraid of taking questions, and I watched you in several venues where you did answer questions quite well.
Thank you.
But I want to know, why are you running against Paul Gosar? And that's one of the questions that a lot of people come and ask.
Right.
Why would a good conservative run against another good conservative?
Well, first and foremost, I would say, we're very grateful to Congressman Gosar. He's given us 10 years of his life. And anybody that's willing to give up 10 years of your life and go and do policy and get engaged, that's a lot to ask of somebody. But I'm also a believer in, we don't need career politicians. We need to see new ideas, new energy, things come forward. And as a party, we better step into the next phase or become irrelevant. And that next phase is leadership that resonates with the next generations that don't vote with these socialist principles. We need to engage them, resonate with them, and then motivate them to get involved. And that's not happening. I would also say that the congressman and myself differ on quite a few policy issues. I am strongly fiscally conservative. I am very much in favor of the balanced budget amendment. In our daily lives, we know how much money we need for groceries, our kids, the mortgage, car payment, you name it. And Republicans are traditionally very supportive of seeing a budget at our federal level because they're just writing checks that eventually we'll have to cash. He was one of 6 Republicans to vote against that amendment. I don't like to see that stray. I was born and raised here. I live here. I know that he doesn't. And so I would like to see him really get out and understand that we are strongly fiscally conservative, and we'd like to see that represented in DC. It may not be the most exciting topic, the budget, the dollars, but when that shoe drops, it affects all of us.
It's exciting when we get our tax bill, though, right?
Right?
Yeah.
That we're all April.
That will get your heart beating.
It will. It'll get your heart beat up. So that's one of the pieces where we distinctly differ. Another one is, the president's brought forward a lot of great initiatives, especially for mental and behavioral health care when it comes to the opioid crisis. In our district, Mojave County has been truly a sad state because they're number 5 in the nation for the opioid crisis. And when the president brought forward his initiatives to work on that, Congressman Gosar was one of a few to vote against it. Well, in your own district, you have one of the top 5. We need to be supporting policies and initiatives that support our people. Down in Yuma, we have a $3.3 billion agriculture industry. If you haven't been down there, go down.
Yeah.
If you like leafy greens, it comes from Yuma. Great people down there, great farms, and he voted against the Farm Bill. They want to see somebody that's supportive of the agriculture industry, that's supportive of our ranchers and miners. And so we want to see action. And that comparison between the two of us, I think, is important, where we fall on policy. I also think that we need to shift to a more productive side. Unfortunately, he's one of the top absent representatives in Congress. He's also in the top 15% of GOP members that vote against the president. Now, the president has pushed forward a lot of initiatives that really benefit our district. We need to support those. From trade to the mental and behavioral health crisis to the opioids, those need to be supported. And our district is strongly supportive of the president. Our representatives should be as well on the policies that make sense for our people. So those are the biggest differences.
Yeah.
I would also say just, we talk about things ad hominem, Second Amendment. Well, it's one thing to say stop red flag laws, but why not repeal some of the 20,000 plus gun control laws that are on the books? Let's put those words into action. I'm supportive of it, so I'm going to get rid of a lot of this that's not supportive of it.
Right.
I want a strong border. Great, guess what? I've been on the border. They need help down there in policy. Let's get involved. And so that's another big distinction between us is we need to get engaged and involved, and a lot of that is through civility and relationships, because you won't always have the luxury of controlling the House or the Senate. But we do have the luxury of developing relationships that we can strongly negotiate for conservative principles.
Good answer. Something I wanted to get into. You had you appeared before the CTC, Citizens Tax Committee.
I did.
And you spoke about getting young people involved in the Republican Party, and you actually have made that happen with several of your groups, where you got together with students and talked about things that meant a lot to them.
Yes.
And it's one of my basic questions I ask a lot of people, and is, how do we get the young people involved in the Republican Party? It seems like you see the Bernie Sanders give everything away, the socialist way, and all that other stuff. Could you speak just a little bit about what you learned when, I think it was, you asked them what about the Second Amendment, what do you think about free education? Give some of your experiences on that. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, I would love to tell that story. So that is one of our initiatives on the campaign, and something after that we are elected that we will continue. And that is engaging our high school students and our college students. In fact, this morning before I was here, I was at a local school, and we're setting up an interactive experience for those students to be able to talk to us, go through policy, what it means to campaign, what citizenship means. The experience that I talked about at the CTC was my first trip to a college campus where we did a roundtable, was in a fairly conservative agricultural area. And I thought, okay, these kids will be kind of along the same lines as myself, right? And I said, give me your top 3 issues that we should be working on. First of all, do you vote? Yes, we all vote, right? So what are your top 3 issues? Number 1, we need gun control, which surprised me. And you and I actually met on the gun range.
Yeah, exactly.
Glenn taught me how to shoot left-handed very well. So I grew up around firearms. I'm an advocate for the Second Amendment. I'm an avid shooter myself. And so with that group, I said, well, tell me why we need gun control. And they said, well, it's on the news. If we have gun control, there's no more school shootings. And I said, okay, so why else? I don't know. Why would that stop shootings? Well, nobody would have guns. Really? Okay. So I said, let me tell you about these little things called red flag laws and how these literally infringe on 4 to 5, depending on which red flag law we're talking about, of your rights. And we get through this conversation and the discussion. In socialist countries, the first thing they do is take the guns away, and we go through all this, and they said at the end, collectively, that's a horrible idea. This gun control is a bad idea. Those red flag laws should be illegal. You're right. But if we don't start to engage them and have the conversation, they're not thinking through what it means, especially to their own lives and opportunities. And so that specific discussion was very enlightening for them. And I was almost afraid after that to ask, what are your next issues, right? But I said, okay.
Before you get going, where did you feel that indoctrination is occurring? Is it from the media? Is it from the school source? Is it from the home? Where do you feel that came from?
That's an excellent question. So I asked them because they said, we saw it on the news. And I said, great, which news outlet do you go to? They don't even know what Fox and CNN are. They are looking at Apple News, Facebook News, Google News. I mean, we're in a whole new era where news is driven by social media. These platforms are different, which means we better start engaging differently as a Republican Party, as a conservative push in the nation. So then we get to the next issue, and I said, well, what's next? And they said, well, we need free healthcare and free education. That was 2 and 3. And they said, we really appreciate AOC. She's the only one that's like us. She's the only one that cares about us, that really understands our problems with how expensive education is and, the lack of health care. And I said, well, what do you really like about her policies? And they said, well, we'll have a good paying job. We'll have somewhere to live, the free education, free health care. And I said, let me ask you a question. Did you pick this school you wanted to go to? Yes. Did you pick your career field? Yes. Do you want to choose where you want to live and where you want to work? Yes. Well, then socialism isn't for you. Because if the government is going to design this, they'll pick who goes into what program, who does what, where you live, what a livable wage will be. All of your liberties and your choices go away. And those kids looked at me just terrified and said, well, that's a bad idea. We want our choices. But that is the missing link for the party. We haven't reached out. We haven't retranslated what does conservatism mean for your daily life. Whether we like it or not, we are not in the era of what can you do for your country.
Yes.
We are in that we better translate this to them of how does this benefit me? And hopefully that journey will bring them to how can I give back at some point? That's the goal, right? But we're in a place where we have to fight that battle differently.
Yeah.
And we're doing that. We're reaching out to our college kids all over.
And that was such a great point, because I don't think a lot of the young people see the consequences of socialism.
No.
And, I was at Kwan's meet and greet last night, and, one of the things he's brought out, and I totally agree with him, is that the difference between communism and socialism is communism, you own an AK-47. So, it's right there. And we darn well better get to our kids, our young people, and recognize that, the old saying, and I used this last show, you can vote your way into socialism, but you got to shoot your way out of communism and socialism. So there is consequences, and we need to let them know that. We need to let they need to understand that. Okay, everything is not free. Somebody's going to pay for it.
Right.
And when other people's money runs out, that's when you see Venezuela on the streets.
There you go.
I'm preaching to the choir, aren't
Right?
I?
No, but it's true, and that
It is true, and I applaud you for getting that message out to the young people.
We have
because we need to do that. We need more of that, and as a party, we need to do that as well as our candidates.
And the biggest piece too is to quit going to just Republican clubs. I love them. I go there and they all agree with me. Yes.
Yeah, that's easy.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Or go to the college campuses and just talk to the Republican clubs, which most of those have died out, sadly. But if we keep talking to the same people, we're in an echo chamber. And so if we're talking to that group of 10 kids, where they're saying, wow, we see your point. Well, they go out and talk to another 10 kids, right? Old rule of business, it's the 1 to 100 rule, where they talk to 10 people and they talk to another 10 people. So we have to start looking at it differently, getting outside of those comfort zones and really bringing those people in of embrace these conservative values, embrace being proud to be an American, remember your great American legacy, and let's keep that going.
Okay, that's a great point. And again, when I see people going out of the 9 dots and getting involved, that's what it's all about.
Yes.
It really is. So, you know, I had another thought and I just went out of
That's
my
okay.
mind. But you know, let's go on to some of the subjects. And I say
Right.
play because what I do is I usually throw out a current issue.
Okay.
And all I want to do is know what your opinion, where you stand on it.
Great.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to throw out is border security.
Border security, perfect. So one of the things we've done on this campaign is if we want to learn about an issue, we go there. We learn all about it. Everywhere we can go, we talk to people and learn on both sides so that we know how to combat the arguments that are coming from the other side. So one of the first trips I took on the campaign was down to Yuma. Now, our district doesn't actually hit the border. It stops in the middle of Yuma as a county, but obviously it's a national security and a state concern. And so I did the official government tour, and then I went and drove along with a buddy of mine to talk to the men and women that are actually down there on the line.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. And what they said to me was, we always need more manpower, more technology. But most importantly, what we need is to have legislators that are engaged and supportive, because these court cases that are stopping the law don't allow us to do our job. We actually get laughed at by illegals coming over. And then I said, well, who has really been a champion for you? We have allegedly some of the most conservative representatives in our state. And they said, nobody. One person. Any guesses?
Go ahead.
President Trump.
Right, yeah.
And they said, look, you know, the wall, we hear so much about the wall, the yes, no, the money, and they said, but in reality, anybody can get under, through, or over. It's the amount of time it takes. But this wall for us helps so much because it gives us time to respond. And right now, they need that time because these men and women are spread out, and that technology helps them get there instantly, but that barrier helps. And the farmers down there, because I was curious to see how they responded, they said, we don't mind the wall at all. We had vehicles racing through our downtown, through our next to our schools, with our kids, through neighborhoods, and they have gates to go farm on both sides. So we hear all this, that you're cutting them off from legacy land, and no, they're not. They're farming on both sides. And so as we talked, they said the greatest issue we have is humanitarian. This is not drug trafficking. The cartels gave up on that because, I mean, not gave up, it's still coming, but it's more lucrative for human trafficking. So they are going down to the Triangle area, and even for middle class and more wealthy, they're saying, we can capitalize much more in America. We have all the documentation. We have a job waiting for you. They advertise in the city square. They bring them up. I've seen the videos. They drop them off in a bus at the gate. You see the cartel folks with their guns, getting them right there, getting them over. And they set them loose. Right now, it's 8 years to get a hearing in front of a judge.
Right.
So off they go, right? And so a few stings have been done with the money that they have. In one of the stings, they found out that these people that have their tracking and their papers that allow them to be here legally, before they see a judge, they throw those out.
Never to be seen again.
They head off with the cartel, and they live in indentured servitude, sometimes 30 to 40 people deep in a single wide trailer, paying off this $7,000 to $7,800 that they were charged by the cartel.
Mule fuel fee.
Yeah. And so this is a piece where, as Republicans, ideologically, obviously, a secure border is a sovereign nation, right? We know it's safety, the drugs, the human trafficking, but that's the piece where I strongly believe that our far left, where they're saying they're coming here for a better life. So that single wide trailer with 40 people is a better life?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we need that. But what we need most, what they said we need most, is advocates for policy. You know, I mean, we conservative representatives should be their advocate, their voice, and they're not.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Again, the human trafficking, the human suffering that is
Right.
brought up. I mean, just that alone, not counting the drugs and everything else that comes over a porous border.
Right.
And I hear the same thing from a lot of the Border Patrol, you know. That wall gives them that time to respond.
Yes.
And unfortunately, a lot of the people that do get across, as soon as they do, if they do, they sit down because they know they're going to get processed, released, and never seen again.
Yep.
And then, like you said, the people that owe the cartels
Right.
go into servitude of some way or another, whether it's prostitution or whatever. Again, that level of human suffering just continues.
Yep.
So,
We need
well,
that wall, technology, manpower, and policy.
there you go. How about immigration? Any reform in immigration law?
So I think the greatest issue right now is that the immigration law is not even being followed. And we have so many court cases that are pushing back on the immigration law that it can't even do its job. So do we need to constantly look at it and say, are there tweaks, are there revisions that we need? Yes or no. But you mentioned Kwong, who talks about, you know, coming to America, becoming a citizen. And I can't tell you how many people I meet out in the district that say, I came here and I did it the right way. I became an American, a proud American. I learned everything about the country and
Right.
how it started and why. And that works.
Right.
Then we have productive, brilliant people that are in our country that want to be a part of who we are. And so these arguments I hear of, we don't need all that. It's too time consuming. It's too, you know, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're
no,
one of the only countries where you can come and become American.
Right.
And so we need to keep that strong.
And it's a vetting process as
Yes.
well. You know, Kwan,
Yes.
I go back to his speech where it took him 8 years to become, but during that 8 years, America was able to look at Kwan and say, is this a guy that we want to make sure that he's going to be a citizen of the United States and be a
Right.
valuable and productive citizen?
Right.
So I agree. It doesn't seem to me that the system is broken as much as it's just not adhered to.
Right.
And like you said, everything needs to be tweaked as we go.
Right. I mean, the change happens, but right
Yeah.
now we need to follow it.
Yeah, there you go. Enforce the law.
Right.
And that kind of goes to my next one is the
Okay.
Second Amendment. And you kind of hit on that a little bit because a lot of the laws, in my belief, are put on because the last law didn't work. So if the law isn't working, why do we still keep it on the books? And if we're not going to enforce it, why would we even throw another law on top of it? You know, one of the things, I used to work in a gun store, and there was a lot of, you know, we would fill out a report. And if a felon goes in and fills out this report trying to buy a gun, they're not prosecuted for trying to break the law and buy a gun. They're just rejected the gun. You know, you don't get your gun, sorry, you got a record, da da da. What about going after that guy saying, why are you pursuing a firearm when you are a felon and you shouldn't be owning a firearm? We don't do that. I mean, here again, these laws are there, but we don't enforce them. But we talk about the Second Amendment and we talk about the Second Amendment sanctuary city, county, and reservation policy. And I see a lot of the elected kind of back off and they say, well, the lawyers don't really think we should do this. Or, you know what, we may not get money or funding from the state because we're going to not give any assets to go against the red flag laws which violate your Constitution. So my question to all the candidates coming up is, how far are you willing to defend and protect the Constitution from all many enemies, foreign and domestic? And I'm not asking you to go out in the street and die or anything like that, but as a legislator, are you willing to stand up for everything that Constitution, what this stands for?
Absolutely. Every single bit of it. You know, like I said, my family fought to start this country. I'm not going to step away from that. You know, we have to preserve that legacy, those rights. This is the most successful nation in the world. The moment we start touching our fundamental doctrine, so to speak, we start to lose. And it happens quickly. And I would say to those people that throw it back on the lawyers and the money, you want to get reelected, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you're too terrified to stand and promote the values and morals that you were supposed to be representing in the people that elected you. And so I would strongly hope to see those people vote you out because you don't represent who they are. There's too much in the political world of walking this delicate line
Right,
so that you
right.
appeal to the masses,
Everybody,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, we saw very quickly with the president that people don't actually like that.
Right.
You know, be honest, be open, be realistic. And I think those movements, I've heard people say, well, there's not enough weight, there's too much weight, there, you know. It's a statement, it's a political statement that's very polite in saying, you've pushed too far.
Yeah.
You're way too far.
Well, and again, everything happens at the voting box.
Yes.
So we find out who they are and what they are.
Yes.
But, you know, a lot of times, another question that comes up often is people get elected and then they change,
Yes.
you know, and all of a sudden, this is not the person that I voted for.
Right.
Your comments on that. How do we know? I mean, I know you really well. I seem to know you, and we shot at the gun range together, and you know, I've been to a lot of the venues, like I said, and I agree with a lot of what you say. But how do I know? How do the voters know that? You know, doggone it, I'm going to stick to my guns. These are my values, and I'm not going to waver once I get down to the swamp.
So I love that question, and it all comes down, I strongly believe, to living where you're elected. Because I'm accountable when I see you in the grocery store, at the coffee shop, having breakfast, at events in the community. And I better be able to look you in the eye, and you should be able to look at me and say, hey, thanks for supporting what you said you would do.
Yeah.
Or where are you at? So the office should be transparent. As your representative, I should be able to say, these are the top issues I'm working on in your area right now, and here's where we're at on those.
Yeah.
And we've moved that forward, or we haven't moved it forward, and this is why. But we're not holding our elected leaders to productivity. And a lot of them, like my opponent, myself, I live here. I grew up here. I know these people. I'm raising my kids here. And so I have to face you regularly, right? At the gun range, the grocery store, the clubs. And so that's my integrity. And that's, I strongly believe, why we should live where we're elected. Because that holds us to who we are. And it connects us.
Cool. Okay, next question. Planned Parenthood and abortion.
So I am a strong believer in pro-life. And to me, a woman's choice begins far before she ever gets pregnant. And that is where we have missed the boat in the conversation, in my opinion. I've been to a lot of pro-life events, to 5Ks, to dinners, and once again, you don't see the next generations there because we haven't had the conversation to focus around responsibility before you make a decision that causes you to make another decision. And so I think it's time for us to see in the political realm a young woman stand up and say, your choice begins before you get pregnant. You know, you have many options to not. You have some that are 100% guaranteed. You have some that are pretty guaranteed. Your responsibility starts there, not afterwards. And so I'm strongly supportive of pro-life. It's time for us to change that conversation.
Planned Parenthood?
Not supportive at all.
Okay.
And
I was writing this down. I wasn't sure if you did that or not.
Not supportive at all. We don't need dollars going there, period.
Okay, next really dumb question.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll
ready?
take it.
President Trump, where
What
do you
about
stand with him? I mean, are you supporting him 100%, 90%? Where do you stand on his policies?
I'm strongly supportive of many of the president's policies. I've seen that USMCA was a huge win for our trade. It impacted Arizona immensely with what our industries can do, our farmers, our ranchers, our miners, our small businesses, our big companies. So those trade policies are brilliant. We need to keep those going. Like I said, the mental and behavioral health care push where he gets where we're at with the opioids. I loved that in his State of the Union, he said, Big Pharma, it's on. I'm taking you on. I love that in education, he has said, we need to bring career and technical education back to every high school in America. And he is right.
Absolutely.
We have given federal dollars in grants and loans and produced, quote unquote, the most educated generations of people. Yet we have job shortages in almost every industry. Workforce is the biggest problem I hear from businesses in the entire district. They don't have enough people. So we have extremely educated and in-debt college graduates, which means they're going to look for what?
Yeah.
Government assistance, right? So then they're going to bite onto the socialist rhetoric. And instead, we need to start correlating their education to the actual job market. And it's in all levels. And some are that college world, some are the JTED, CTED. We have to be supportive of that. It's time to look at, and I have 3 degrees, right? Did I need all those? Probably not, right?
But you can't get a plumber.
But you can't get a plumber.
I mean, that's a lot. That's the world we're living in, right?
Yes, we have a national shortage of pilots, of doctors. Good luck trying to find a specialist or a general practitioner in many of our rural communities. We have to look at these differently. And in reality, a lot of these policies affect one another, right? So healthcare, if we have specialists and doctors come, they have families. They want good education systems for their family to be a part of. They want communities that have resources. They want, so each of these touch one another, and it's good to see the president take a look at things collectively of the entire spectrum. Because for far too long, we've let politicians say, it's too complicated. There was something little in that bill, or it's just, you can't do anything back there. Well, guess what? We had somebody go back in 4 years. He's produced probably more results than in the last 25. I'm not buying it. Vote him out. Let's get started with new people.
You say we brought up healthcare.
Yes.
A lot of people are seeking different venues of healthcare. Your opinion?
So healthcare is fascinating. I have been to a plethora of healthcare roundtables, to hospitals, talked with specialists. And really, our healthcare runs the gamut from mental and behavioral, opioids, specialists, general practitioners, Medicare, Medicaid, private policy. And what we're seeing is the less competition, the more the prices go up, right? Basic.
Capitalism.
Right.
Amazing.
So it's incredible. So one of the pieces in Arizona that we need the most is attracting and retaining more physicians, period. We don't have enough. So many communities, our veterans are driving an hour and a half, 3 hours. Our seniors can't get care, and then we're hoping that their family can somehow drive to them. We're seeing that when I meet with hospitals, they're admitting, we know that we're abusing the Medicare system.
Yeah.
And we also know that the welfare programs are sucking money out of Medicare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Medicare needs to be looked at with a deep amount of scrutiny to start fixing this.
Right.
Because it's been abused, it's not sustainable long term, and we can't just keep kicking the can down the road, right? National deficit, same thing.
Medicare for all does not,
No.
we're going to go broke.
We are going to go broke, but we need to see more open, free, and fair markets. How many insurance companies do we have in Arizona?
2? 1?
One. In 14 counties.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 15 counties. There's some other options out there now, but predominantly it's Blue Cross Blue Shield. And businesses I talk to, individuals say my rates have gone up, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times. Deductibles gone up, and care has gone down. And we're getting to the point where insurance companies have so much control that they're dictating care of the patient, where the patients are telling the doctors, I need an MRI, not a CAT scan, because that's all my insurance covers.
Yeah.
Do we want insurance companies dictating care? This is terrifying.
Yeah.
Just the list of the top 25 insurance companies,
I'm
the
actually
lobby
a victim
dollars.
of that.
Are you?
To tell you, yeah. I was supposed to get
Tell
a
us.
CAT scan, or I was supposed to get a CAT scan. Let me get this right. I was supposed to get a scan, and they went down to a CAT scan, I should say, and because the insurance company wouldn't cover the other one, so
See?
the doctor was like, "Okay, well, I'll take whatever I can get," but it's
scary.
It's a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
And it's something that, like all of these problems, where it can seem daunting and we can say, well, we should, we want. It's time to get to work. Let's do.
Yeah.
Let's get these people at the table, and they're ready. I travel the district every day, different topics, different areas. We have experts. We have people that know how the policy affects whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
Let's get to work. That's the missing link.
Well, we definitely know there needs to be something done
Yes.
in our healthcare system. So let's close it up a little bit because I'm looking at the
Great.
time. Before we leave, because there are so many vets in our area, what's your plan to help the vets get the help that they need, both mentally and physically?
So for the veterans, and I mentioned early on, my dad's a veteran, and we're very proud in this area, especially in this district, to have a high number of veterans. And what I'm hearing from our veterans groups is that while the Mission Act that said you could get care elsewhere so it was faster, in principle worked, Tri-West has found loopholes to say we can deny that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a problem. So on that side, they need more help. They also, we don't have enough clinics in our rural communities, so they're driving too far to get care. We need to open that up and let part of the private sector take that on. The Mission Act was a great step. We need to go further. What I really liked seeing was the Veterans Treatment Courts. Are you familiar with those?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so the Veteran Treatments Courts it started in Lake Havasu, and they are able to look at veterans, and when they come through, they've committed a crime, as long as it's not a felony, to say what happened and why. And a lot of times it's correlated to their experience in the military. And so they're saying, let's get you the resources that you need and get you out of this, what becomes a perpetual system in the jails that costs the taxpayers money. It doesn't actually help the individual.
Right.
And they have a 95% success rate. And so now those courts are being duplicated everywhere. In fact, I just met with a veteran who graduated from ours right here in this area. And he said, look, it got me the care that I needed.
Right.
I'm working full time. I'm doing my job as a citizen. So there's so many ways to help our veterans, from the treatment courts to better care, to making sure that we have connecting them to the job opportunities.
Right.
There's a lot of ways that are not being capitalized on right now, and they're not being listened to. That's an overarching theme I hear when I go, nobody's listening. Let's listen and do.
You know, Mitch Padilla, who ran for Justice of the Peace, that was one of his ideas, getting veterans who are in a misdemeanor situation right now and get them help at a misdemeanor level before it proceeded into a felony.
Right.
We're about ready to wrap it up, so if you have a question, folks, again, if you have a question for Anne Marie, please write them down in the comment section. I'll get it to her. But you know, one of the other things that Mitch would talk about, and I really liked listening to Mitch when he was running, was women's veteran issues. You know, a lot of times we look at veteran issues in a male perspective, but you know what? There's a lot of women who are suffering the same consequence.
Yes.
And we need to pay attention to that as well. And I don't know if it gets the same amount of light put on it, but it needs to be.
I like that. Thank you for bringing that.
You bet. So those are pretty much all the questions I have, and nobody has asked a question, so I'm like, come on, let's go.
You got a question, but we don't have time to answer it.
Well,
we don't? Oh, darn.
really quickly, we have invited Congressman Gosar to 5 debates in the district.
Okay.
I think debate is vital to being open and transparent, to having that political discourse so that constituents know who these people are, know how they compare when you want them to represent you. We haven't heard back yet from him. We would like to hear back so that we can start to shift that paradigm in political thinking and talk and debate. And then we also have an office up at the Gateway Mall where we'd love for people to come visit us. We get a lot of foot traffic there just wanting to talk about their concerns. People can reach us on our website, www.annemarieforcongress.com. You can email us, call us. We can make sure all the information is with the post. And we travel everywhere to learn about the issues. So if you want us to come to your business, to your farm, we've been mining. If you want us to come to the jail, we've been to the jails. We'll come and learn about the issues. That is the point of representation.
And you have a Facebook site,
have
so I know you have lots of
Instagram, Twitter, whatever you like. Come find us, follow us.
Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to let you close out the show because before I go, I always thank our past and serving military for giving us the opportunity to sit down at the table and speak about the issues that are important to us today. And I also thanked our fire and our police department for walking our streets and making sure that they're safe. And we know that you're always behind you guys and gals out there. So as we close out, I'm going to have you look at that camera right there and tell the folks why they should vote for Anne Marie Ward for U.S. Congress.
Well, thank you all for watching. I know this was fairly lengthy. I would like for you to vote for me, not just in this election, but to get to know me and get engaged and involved. It's together that we have a civic duty to not only carry on the legacy of our greatest generation, but to solve our problems. And we can only do that when we are engaged and working together. So I ask not only for your vote during the primary on August 4th, but to see you as a part of this new phase of our conservative part of America moving forward so that we can solve our problems and preserve our great American legacy.
Cool. So we did have a question. We're running out of battery time, so I
Okay.
can't do it. But would you go on the Facebook site, Prescott E-News, Prescott Talks, and answer that question for that person?
Yes, we will
Yeah.
answer, phone
Yeah.
call, coffee, whatever you want.
There you go. And with that, Prescott, thank you so much. We'll see you next Friday. Take care.